quarterback.
Oh, there's a goal!
At least I thought he was gonna until he blew it.
It is both a time of galvanizing triumph and rebuilding for the future. The MLB Trade Deadline, the unofficial holiday of baseball after Bobby Bonilla Day. The hot stove is fast and furious, unlike this past offseason, and the world of possibilities are endless for the buyers. This aforementioned world of possibilities is not for the Baltimore Orioles, a team that is experiencing nothing less than a total nightmare of a season. Everything has bottomed out, leaving a gaping chasm that needs to be filled for a rather bleak future. The organization has chosen to do what it needed to do a while ago: blow it all up. First comes the end of an era, with Manny Machado being shipped off to the Dodgers for a bevy of prospects. Then the waves hit with fury. Brad Brock, Kevin Gossman, Darren O'Day, Chris Tillman, Zach Britton, Jonathan Scope. All gone within a matter of days. The only recognizable pieces left are Dylan Bundy, Mark Trumbo, Chris Davis's unmovable contract, and Adam Jones, who refused to move elsewhere at the deadline. Orioles, it's time to settle in and embrace that glorious tag. Get ready for a few years of painful rebuilding as you hope someone takes on the Cashner and Cobb contracts. On the other end of the spectrum, there are the Red Sox. Not content with just being ahead of the Yankees, the time has come for them to bludgeon them back into the ground where they belong. They have the best record in baseball by a wide margin, even with half the team being afflicted with Mets levels of injuries. Boston really didn't need to do much at the deadline, just bolster their depth, which they did by adding Steve Pearce, Ian Kinsler, and Nathan Eovaldi to a roster ready to make noise in the postseason. The insufferability of Boston is once again rising as Pearce obliterates the Yankees with 3 home runs in a game. Because as always, what Boston needed was another good sports team, am I right? At the very least, it's allowing us to see squirming Yankees fans again. Things were going smoothly for them until Aaron Judge suffered the wrath of the injury gods. If you have been paying attention to Yankees circles, you would think this was the death of their season. Everything is destroyed and the only thing left standing is the new public enemy of the Bronx, Sonny Gray. Look at how terrible he is. The fucker is smiling as he is getting blown up in a game. Absolutely shameful. It doesn't matter if they picked up Zach Britton and Jay Happ. The season is a bust and they're fucked. Calm yourselves, Yank fans. Judge is gonna be back and you're gonna make a wildcard spot at minimum. Just be known that if you play the Red Sox in the playoffs, I'm rooting for the nuke. Thus leads us to the other power in the AL, Houston. The Astros chose to make a very bold move, in fact quite possibly the biggest gamble in the deadline, by grabbing Roberto Osuna, the same Osuna that was suspended at the time of the trade for allegations of domestic abuse. In return for taking this head case, they gave the Jays one of their head cases in Ken Giles. The last time he was in an Astros uniform, he yelled at his manager, committed abuse on himself, and was promptly sent down to AAA. The Jays also get a few minor pitching prospects as well for the trouble. Jeff Luhnow has been quoted that he believes in second chances and there will be zero tolerance for any further transgressions. Unfortunately, this is also a team that had one of their minor leaguers violently beat his woman on camera, much to the chagrin of several Astros pitchers. Awkward. Speaking of Toronto, one thing that comes in mind to me is that they had a relatively poor deadline. I know they needed to blow it up, but I felt that they sold low on a lot of pieces. Osuna, one of your best trade chips, traded during a suspension. The rest of the players you sold off were rentals that got a minimal return. Some of your allegedly big chips, like Josh Donaldson, are so injury prone that they have lost all value. If you had traded him during the winter, you could have gotten a decent haul, but alas. There are still nice prospects in the system, but Toronto is in a deep hole. Start digging. Out of another massive hole emerges Oakland. It's as if they had heard what I said about them on the season preview and told me to eat another gigantic pile of shit. The A's always had potential, but I didn't feel that it would materialize because a lot had to go right for it to happen. In typical fashion, all of the things have gone right. Say hello to leapfrogging the Mariners in the wildcard chase. And a few new pieces in Yuri's Familia, Mike Fiers, and a Brad Kelly exiled by the Nationals as punishment for an outburst. We all love a good underdog, and the A's may be that story this year. At least until the wildcard game. Take it and run, boys. As for the Mariners, they appear to be back to their dick-punching ways. They went on a predictable skid because Seattle, and are now in threat of not making the playoffs. Begin the painful slide to irrelevance. Your only hope is a collapse from one of the teams ahead of you in the playoff race. It doesn't matter that you added depth in the bullpen and outfield. The offense has run dry and King Felix's prime has successfully been wasted. What a goddamn tragedy. Thus brings us to fucking Cleveland. With them and their wonderful bullpen woes this season, it's looking like another October to remember, alright. They have chosen to bolster the pen with Padres stalwarts in Brad Hand and Adam Simber. To do this, they have given San Diego a top 10 prospect in Francisco Mejia. It's a very steep price, but Hand and Simber are under control beyond this season. Now if only they call the right goddamn guy out of the bullpen instead of pitching a guy for the third day in a row, that would be great. Teams like Atlanta and Philadelphia once again get to experience the wonders of buying assets at the deadline. However, both of these teams took different approaches to it. For the Phillies, they added rentals. Wilson Ramos and Asdrubal Cabrera step up and enjoy a playoff push. Philly also got them without giving up much in significance. Atlanta, on the other hand, went for the long-term approach by acquiring Kevin Gausman and Adam Duvall. If it means anything, Baltimore is death for pitching prospects, and Gausman has a good pedigree. He was packaged along with Darren O'Day for a selection of prospects. Duvall's acquisition is a bit baffling, as the Braves have their starter set in the outfield and Duvall is struggling, but this probably has more to do with Markakis being a free agent at the end of the season. Since Atlanta has a fertile farm, it's not going to make that much of a which approach works better? That's a question that will be answered in time, won't it? This question will also be answered for the Nationals, who are, let's say, in a bit of a tailspin. The team has underachieved dramatically, as Bryce Harper is having an uncharacteristically sluggish season and the Nats are hovering around 500. What is worse is that the team is apparently going through some serious locker room turmoils not seen since the days of Papal Douche. Players are at each other's throats, there is severe distrust, and it shows on the field. There were even rumors that the Nats were going to trade off Bryce Harper, for God's sake. As a result of this calamity, Washington was half in and half out. They did next to nothing at the deadline. The only moves of note included trading off alleged malcontent Brandon Kinsler to the Cubs and waiving Sean Kelly because he threw a temper tantrum on the mound. Quite the stable organization, don't you think? Another disappointment to me at the deadline were the Rockies. Deep in the playoff hunt with serious issues in the bullpen, and the organization chooses to do nothing. Their only move was bringing in the final boss. They have chosen to hoard and keep pushing with what they've got. The NL is rather cutthroat this year, and if a team needed to bolster depth, it was Colorado. This may cost them, honestly. Oh, St. Louis, I am relishing in the shitshow that your organization has become. The once proud franchise that pulled World Series wins out of their ass is now deep in locker room rifts and a culture of favoritism. Try their closer hazing a mere rookie reliever in the public setting as Mike Matheny does nothing about it. Try the epitome of mediocrity on the field. A team that was rumored to dismantle did make one move. Tommy Pham. Exiled to the Dome of Hell in Tampa Bay. This is unfortunately what you get when you chirp and talk shit about the team that allegedly fucked you over for years. No chips on your shoulder in this organization, we play baseball the right way. This also goes for Mike Matheny, one of the great destroyers of bullpen arms in baseball. His mismanagement and complacency in the clubhouse is costing them the season, and thus gets the axe. The Cards have recovered a bit, but it's not looking like a playoff year yet again. Welcome to the rest of baseball, St. Louis. You can be lorded over by the Cubs like everyone else. A team that the Cards once kept in check has escaped with the NL Central lead once again. For now, the Cubs make a few moves to bolster the pitching, like Kinsler, Jesse Chavez, and Cole Hamels. It doesn't matter that Hamels hasn't been good in years, he will probably turn into a stud again because Cubs and years have harnessed reverse karma. Fuck. The Brew Crew tries to keep up with a few big splashes as well. The outfield is set, but the infield lacks oomph in their bats. They try to rectify this with Mike Moustakas and Jonathan Schoop. Problem is that Moustakas and Travis Shaw have the same position. Easy fix there, put Schoop at shortstop and Shaw at second base. You sure that's a good idea, Milwaukee? Even with Jesus Aguilar's bat turning into sand? In Pittsburgh, it's been a ride, let's just say that. A team that was looking dead in the water in the middle of July was wondering what they could sell at the deadline. This is when management goes to their players and says, "Well, Billy, if you get all A's on your report card, you'll get a new Xbox." Little did they know that the players would call their bluff. They got all A's on their report card. Try rattling off 11 straight wins in 12 of 15 to thrust them back into the wildcard hunt. The pitching was rock solid, and guys like Polanco, Marte, Bell, and Dickerson were hitting everything in sight. Skepticism was abound due to Huntington's reputation of hoarding prospects, but by God he went through with it. Try an unprecedented shopping spree involving Keone Kela and Chris fucking Archer, two of the better names on the market. They even paid a very steep price to get Archer. It's a sudden turn of events from the half-in, half-out bullshit they've been pulling. These moves are also for the future, as both pitchers are under team control for 3 more years. The window has been set. Is it foolish? Maybe. But I'll give Neil credit for not pussyfooting again. We'll see you all at the impending August collapse. This leads me to Tampa Bay. They played this deadline very well. The only trade where I feel they could have gotten more was with Wilson Ramos, but they all but made up for it with how they masterfully executed the Archer negotiations, playing several teams like the Pirates, Padres, and Brewers against one another and selling at peak value for a player that was struggling this season. They get players with good pedigrees like Austin Meadows and Tyler Glass now, even if they haven't lived up to the billing. Tampa Bay is rebuilding, even if their record doesn't suggest it, and if Tampa knows how to do one thing, it's develop starting pitching. Just watch Glass now turn into Randy Johnson just because. Arizona, what will you do to stabilize your squad?
Lost.
Even if he was struggling, that sucks. Go grab yourselves an Eduardo Escobar to alleviate the pain. Here, have a few bullpen arms as consolation as well. May it stave off yet another downswing. We finish off our saga in Los Angeles, a team that was desperately trying to stay under the luxury tax threshold. Injuries to Seager and Turner will turn that plan into a disaster. At this rate, the Dodgers needed to save their season. They just say fuck it and go grab Manny Machado and Brian Dozier. Once again, minor drops in the bucket for a team like LA. Machado is finally free from his role of carrying the Orioles and has responded by performing admirably. The Dodgers still aren't missing a beat, even if their entire team has overloaded a hospital ward.
Why in God's name do you always forget about the Mets? We had ourselves a very typical trade deadline of underselling and foolish optimism. Turns out Sandy Alderson got a terrifying case of Metitis, so we have no true GM at this time. Gaze in wonder at the terrible returns we got for Cabrera and Familia because we are too cheap to retain any salary. Giving guys like DeGrom and Zach Wheeler new homes, total rubbish. The orange and blue are going to still be competitive for years to come. Think of the names we still have on this roster. Yoenis Cespedes.
Lost.
Or
Bad gone.
the legend of Tim Tebow.
Lost.
All this and more with the Mets. Okay, so we sort of are the Knicks.
Reyes looking for that punch out instead of fly ball to center field. Chases Jackson back, away back near the wall. It's out of here. Oh, Lord. Mark Reynolds adds a 3-run homer. Do that one better. 24-1 tonight.